right, it's time to talk about this. 3 years ago, Garrah made a video about me in which he bullied me for like 30 minutes. But he wasn't just bullying me, he was bullying all of the non-binary people who experience gender dysphoria differently than him. That video fucked me up. He and his fan base bullied me off the platform. I was scared of queer spaces for a long time, and I closeted myself online up until very recently, and today I learned that he deleted the video. It's just gone. I don't know exactly when, and I don't know exactly why, but I'm pretty sure it's because the trans conversation is turning against him, and he's trying to mitigate some of the damage. But the damage is already done. Whether that video is up or not, he hurt me for a long time, and I know that I'm not the only one that he hurt. So if you were personally victimized by Garrah or hurt by his rhetoric, please comment on this video or duet me. I want to talk to you and I want to know your story, and I just want to know how big we are.
I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that Kalvin preaches, and the things that I do agree with, I just can't support the way he goes about preaching it because it's just so flawed, and I would like to discuss it. This is why I no longer support Garrah.
What he said was and was not valid. That made me really hate myself. And so much of it set me back.
Why do we give a fuck about this video? The person unfortunate enough to be targeted in this video to go viral was a young YouTuber named Brennan. In this beautiful, glorious, exquisite example of free speech, Kalvin basically shits on this person's appearance and gender expression for almost half an hour because their experience with gender isn't exactly the same as his, all the while consistently saying that they aren't really transgender.
That video hurt my goddamn feelings, and it also made me realize that trans men aren't necessarily my allies as a non-binary person. And then I'd meet other trans people who agreed with his mindset and supported him, and I was like, ah, shit, I thought we were supposed to be on the same team, bro. But no, they'd always be willing to throw me under the bus to validate themselves, and that sucks.
The solution isn't to replace binary rules with new binary rules.
Sorry, but you can't simply make a video that cruel and then continue as if nothing happened.
I was dysphoric over a fucking pop socket with fucking roses in it. Dysphoric over a fucking pop socket!
Hundreds, if not thousands, of Kalvin's fans piled onto this tiny YouTube channel, and Brennan consequently deleted all of their LGBTQ content.
Kalvin really made a name for himself by reacting to crazy trans trenders.
Because the video that Kalvin made about them is now approaching 2 million views, they still get harassed by his fans.
You're fine with making videos about them on the internet because that means you don't have to think about who they are as a person or the fact that maybe they have experiences being trans outside of one singular video you saw on your For You page.
I think his past actions were really cruel, and I think we can't let them slide.
This is the first time I'm sitting down in front of a camera with the intention of talking about my identity on YouTube in 3 years. Unfortunately, I don't think I can break my silence without talking about why I was silent in the first place. I am taking back my narrative by explaining how it was stolen. I've been afraid to post about myself online because Garrah and his fan base bullied me off the internet. There's so many layers to this story that there is no way I can fit it into one video. I really did. I tried condensing everything I had to say into one video, but in order to do myself and the conversation justice, I'm going to break it down into 3-ish parts. And this is part 1, my personal story. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Brennan. I'm 22 years old. I just graduated with my bachelor's degree in social work. I live in Los Angeles, and I identify as a non-binary trans man. Don't worry too much about who I am now. We will talk about that later. Let's talk about who I was. Back when I looked a little bit more like this. In 2015, this was how I liked to dress, and It's not really how I like to dress anymore, but it provides a visual for you. This is a visual of who I was. In 2015, I came out on YouTube as gender fluid. MTV producers saw that video and wanted me to be on MTV's True Life, I'm Genderqueer, which I did, and that was fun. And then I did a video for HBO, a documentary called Suited, and they flew me up to New York City for their premiere, which was also really awesome and amazing. And there was a point in my life where I could have used those opportunities to become a genderqueer influencer. And if I wasn't just a stupid senior in high school, I probably would have done that. But instead, I went to college and I majored in theater, and I went to college in Pensacola, Florida. Don't ask me why I chose the most conservative place I've ever lived to go to college. That's a story for a different video, but that leads us to February 2018, when the bulk of this story takes place. So in 2018, I was a sophomore in college. I was majoring in technical theater. I was an RA, and I was making YouTube videos off and on. YouTube was just a hobby. I liked making videos. I liked putting myself out there. But for the most part, it was something I did on the side of being a student and having a job and having a life. I made videos about whatever I felt like, whenever I felt like. I was not posting consistently. I had about 2,000 subscribers and not nearly as much engagement. I had no kind of dedicated following at this point, and I was averaging like 50 to 500 views per video. All of this is to say that when Kalvin Garrah reacted to one of my videos, I was not prepared for any of the attention that I got because of it, especially not the negative attention. So who was Kalvin Garrah in 2018? He was and still is a trans YouTuber. He's about 2 years younger than me at the time, 17 or 18. He made videos that were clickbaity and sensationalized. He was loud and energetic and a little bit controversial, but it was working out for him. He had about 50 to 100,000 subscribers by the time he reacted to me. So in February 2018, I made a video called My Gender Dysphoria and How I Cope with It. At the time, I identified as genderqueer, and I thought it might be interesting to make a video about how I experienced gender dysphoria. I had also seen a few comments about how non-binary and genderqueer people don't experience gender dysphoria, which doesn't make them really trans, and I don't believe that. I didn't believe that then, and I still don't believe that. And so I wanted to set the record straight, or gay, or trans, or whatever. I stand by everything I said in that video. Even though I don't identify the same way, and I don't express myself the same way, and I don't articulate my feelings the same way, it was my truth at the time, and I stand by it. It was wholeheartedly how I felt in that moment, and it was valid, and it was real, and it's valid now, and it's real now, even though it has changed a little bit. There is room for growth and development and change in all trans identities. Just like in all identities, in all of life, there is room for growth and change. You don't have to feel the same way about who you are all of the time forever. My video was part of my growth as a trans person. All of my videos were part of my growth as a trans person and as a person in general. I've decided to make my video, My Gender Dysphoria and How I Cope with It, unlisted, and the link will be in the description of this video, because I want you to see for yourself the kind of person that I was and the message I was putting out into the world. Hopefully you will notice that I was speaking completely from my own experiences and from my own feelings. I made it a point consistently in that video and in all of my videos that I could only ever speak for myself and would never speak for any other trans or genderqueer person. I was also overwhelmingly upbeat and positive. I wanted to show my audience realize that being trans is not always a negative experience. Being trans and being queer is not always a cross that we have to bear. Sometimes we can find joy in being our authentic selves. Kalvin Garrah took a different approach. So he saw my video and decided to react to it on his channel. The title of his video was Trans Guy Reacts to Crazy Trans Trender. Spoiler alert, it was not nice. He did not buy into my positive, inclusive message. Originally, this video was going to be called The Crazy Trans Trender Reacts to Kalvin Garrah Reacting to This Crazy Trans Trender. And I wrote that script. I faced my fears and I watched the whole video that he made about me. And I had a response to everything that he said, but he recently deleted his video. I don't think it would be helpful or productive to put that kind of hate and negative energy back into the world in its entirety. I'm not going to respond to every single one of his arguments line by line because I don't want this for 1 second to look like a debate. It's not a debate. It's not an argument. Kalvin Garrah has no authority to even suggest that my identity is anything but what I say it is. That's it. No discussion. I am my identity. I am right about my identity because I am me. So I'm just gonna show a few clips of what he did and what he said so you can have a little bit of context and an idea of what I was dealing with.
I find a video. It was just some cringy SJW talking about how she's trans.
He misgenders me the whole time.
Feel for who she is, or I mean, who she is.
He insults my body.
I can think of maybe why you hate your body, and I don't think it's because you're trans.
He assumes that I'm trying to be a trans man, which shows a complete lack of understanding for my identity and completely contradicts things that I said in my video.
No trans guy would say that.
He uses trans medicalism as a way to position himself as an authority over me.
Our brains experience gender dysphoria because in the womb, our brains developed as one gender and our body developed as another, which...
He says I am the reason that transphobia exists.
That's why Republicans fucking hate us.
And he claims to know enough about me to decide that I am faking being trans. These people on the internet don't know me.
I know enough.
Kalvin clearly doesn't know me. He never did, and he never will. The cardinal rule of respecting trans people is never assuming anybody's gender identity, never giving or assigning anybody a label that they did not give themselves, and always believing trans people when they tell you who they are. Kalvin Garrah violated those most sacred rules, and he can never take that back, whether his video is up or not. We will talk about the implications of him taking it down, but first we have to talk about what happened when it was up. Regardless of how wrong he was, regardless of how mean he was or how aggressive he was, his video got very popular, which sent a lot of Kalvin Garrah fans and people who watched this video and were perhaps inspired by it to go to my channel and remind me of all of the not so nice and not so positive things that Kalvin Garrah had to say in his video. They downvoted all of my videos. They spammed my comments with things like, you're a trans trender, you're bad for the trans community, you don't really have dysphoria, you're faking it, you're wrong, you're bad, you're ugly, which are all things that Kalvin Garrah said in his video, so it only made sense that they would repeat it to me thousands and thousands of times. They didn't stop at my channel though. They went to my Instagram, my Twitter, my Facebook. They flooded my DMs with paragraphs upon paragraphs about how I was wrong for the trans community. They wrote articles about how I was wrong for the trans community. Those first few weeks after he posted that video, I had to turn off my phone. It was just too much. It was always too much. People also took some liberties inspired by Kalvin's video. They told me to commit suicide in various different ways. They told me that I was fat and ugly and needed to stop eating to lose weight. Someone once messaged me to warn me that someone else was plotting on their Tumblr to come and find me on my campus and hurt me. I don't really want to get into how much those hateful and hurtful comments affected my mental health. I don't know how helpful that would be. I don't know how productive that would be, but I do feel compelled to say that I did develop an eating disorder and depression and suicidal ideation because of the harassment I was getting online because of Kalvin's video. That was trauma, and that trauma lingers even now. It's one of the main reasons I have taken so long to post this video, because in order to make this video, I had to confront a lot of trauma. I still have a post-traumatic stress response to hearing Kalvin's name in conversation, to seeing his videos. And the saddest, most frustrating thing is that I'm very much not alone in that. A lot of queer people have the same reaction and the same response to Kalvin Garrah and the rhetoric that he puts out online. This is to say that even though Kalvin's video was online and not in the real world, it had a very real and devastating effect on my mental health, and I am not the only queer person that feels that way about him and his videos. So my channel was effectively infiltrated. It was no longer a fun little hobby of mine to post YouTube videos. I did try to keep posting videos. I tried to keep putting a positive message out there, showing a positive front, and maybe reclaim my voice a little bit, but it didn't work. Every video I made, it didn't matter what I was saying or doing, if it was about trans things or not, every comment was just invalidating and about my identity, and every video I posted after that was just downvoted to hell. I tried different things to mitigate it. I turned on comment filters. I had friends go through my comments so I didn't have to see them. I turned off notifications. I removed the videos that were getting the most heat, which of course was all of my queer videos, sadly. But making videos and putting myself out there was at best emotionally draining and at worst potentially harmful and dangerous. YouTube was just ruined for me. So I deplatformed. I privated all of my videos. I privated all of my accounts online. I took all of my pronouns out of my bios. I effectively closeted myself on the internet. And when I was deplatformed in 2018, I was alone and confused and scared. Every day after that video was posted, someone came to my channel or my Instagram DMs or my Facebook to tell me that I was not trans enough. And when I was told every day that my feelings were not true, I began to believe it. I began to hate myself more than Kalvin Garrah and his army ever could. I felt confused about myself all the time, but in spite of all that, I have grown and changed and developed new ways to express myself, find joy in my identity, and articulate who I am. In the 3 years that I have been closeted online, I have met amazing people that have managed to lift me out of the pit that Kalvin dug for me. I have learned that I am far from alone, and I never have been. When he made that video, he wasn't just tearing me down. He was tearing down all of the non-binary, gender non-conforming trans people that I represented. And all of those people are starting to speak up, and they have my back. I'm stronger now, and I'm not afraid anymore. The tides are turning against Kalvin Garrah, and it's time for someone who has been directly affected by his hate and negativity to hold him accountable for his actions and the damage that he has caused. Someone has to speak up before he pretends like it never happened. It's me. I'm someone. Yeah, I'm not even gonna pretend like I tried to film this all in one day. So that's what I was up against. I got absolutely slammed by Kalvin Garrah and his following, and he is responsible for everything, all of the hate that I got. Because he made that video and he left it up for like 3 years. He introduced all of that negative rhetoric against me and the people that I represented. He told his followers what to say and who to say it to. He also knew that I couldn't effectively fight back. His platform was bigger than mine. It was always bigger than mine, which means his word trumped mine regardless of who was right and who was wrong. He targeted me, he insulted me, and he inspired others to do the same. Whether he said it in his video or not, he encouraged people to bully me. He knows how the internet works and he knows how his followers work. There is no excuse for the hate that I got, and there is no way that he can evade responsibility for that. He didn't care that I was a real person, or maybe he didn't even see me as a real person. He just saw me as something on the internet to make fun of. He didn't think that I had real feelings or real thoughts, or maybe he did and he still didn't care. He just wanted to push a narrative, and he effectively did so. That video went viral, and it encouraged him to make other videos against other queer people that were like me. I was the first trans trender. I was the one that inspired all of his future hate videos on other queer creators that were smaller than him, because the one he made about me worked out so well. It was really effective. He got all of his followers to hate me so much that I left the internet. Sometimes I feel responsible for all of the other queer people that he hated on after me because I didn't put up enough of a fight. And I know that that's irrational. That is it is not my fault. I left the internet for myself, but it did show him that he could completely get away with it and that it would work, that he could effectively erase me from the internet because he didn't like me. I'm gonna, and maybe that's why I'm making this video, so I can finally fight back. I can finally stand up against him and show him that these people that he's hurting are real people that are not gonna let it go. I can't let it go anymore. When he took his video down, it had more than 2 million views. He himself said that it was the first video he ever had to hit 1 million views. He made his brand of policing gender off of the success of his hatred for me. And back then, I didn't have that kind of following. I didn't have the means to combat the harassment that he sent my way. It was just me. I closeted myself online because Kalvin Garrah and his fan base made it impossible for me to exist openly there. But I didn't just closet myself online. I didn't just develop a fear of the internet. I developed a fear of queer spaces in real life. I closeted myself effectively in real life. Up until Kalvin made that video, at the very least, I thought all trans people had each other's backs. I thought at the very least I was safe among other queer people. But Kalvin Garrah shattered that idea in my head. All of a sudden, I had it in my mind that no trans person is to be trusted because so many trans people came to me and told me that I wasn't enough. I felt like an imposter in queer spaces. I stopped going to gender sexuality alliance meetings. I stopped going to gay bars. I distanced myself from my queer friends. I just felt unacceptable by trans people and cis people. And if I was unacceptable to trans people and unacceptable to cis people, I was alone. And I felt that way for a really long time. In the years after Kalvin made that video, I made myself really small. Like before, I was loud and big and excited about everything. I was open about my identity. I enjoyed talking to anybody that had questions, and I had pink hair and a bright, colorful wardrobe, and I loved myself and I loved my friends and I loved the world that I lived in. I felt productive and I loved being an advocate for who I was. I was open and honest and big. And then I was turned into a target. I tried to make that target as small and invisible as possible. I got quieter, less bold. I disappeared into the most inconsequential major I could find. I stopped advocating for myself. I didn't self-identify. I was very protective of who knew about my identity and how much they knew. I said very little online because I was just so afraid of backlash. I started posting about Marvel movies because Marvel movies are way less consequential than my identity, and if someone took issue with how I felt about Spider-Man, that was way less devastating than someone taking issue with who I am as a person. But it didn't matter. My Marvel movie videos got downvoted and hate comments. Kalvin Garrah's fan base did not let me forget. That video never let me rest. I went to therapy. A lot of therapy. And I started pushing myself to be friends with more queer people and to interact with more LGBT people that I felt safe around. I started pushing myself back into queer spaces and facing my fears and insecurities. But to be honest, even now, I feel like an imposter. So when quarantine happened, I had to move back home to Los Angeles, and I started making Marvel-themed TikToks because they were way easier to make than Marvel-themed YouTube videos. And even though I was only making Marvel TikToks, the algorithm clocked me really quickly as a gay person, and I was on gay TikTok. I saw genderqueer people, gender fluid people, gender nonconforming, non-binary, and trans people celebrating their identities, living their best lives with joy and excitement and openness, seemingly unfazed by rhetoric that seeks to tear them down. I hadn't seen that in a long time, and I started to feel like I didn't have to keep suppressing my own identity. I started talking to them and interacting with them and becoming good friends with them. And for the first time in a long time, I had developed a online support system that made me feel really comfortable in who I was. And I felt inspired to start taking more action. I stopped ignoring my identity. I stopped ignoring what I wanted, and I started taking testosterone. I came out on TikTok. I started living more and more openly and feeling more and more comfortable in these new online queer spaces, something that I hadn't felt in a really long time. I'm realizing now that I'm not alone anymore, and maybe I never really was alone. I always had people that felt and believed the same way that I did. I just couldn't find them. I just didn't see them until, like, now. I'm making this video series now because it took me this long to feel comfortable in who I am again. And I also feel like I have people who have my back. And maybe that's not just a feeling. I do have people that are in strong support of what I'm trying to do here. The first video that I made on TikTok about Kalvin Garrah has over 100,000 views now, and the comments are full of support and love, and it's just a real change of pace. The TikTok that I showed in the beginning of this video, where I called upon the TikTok universe to tell me their stories about how Kalvin Garrah has affected them, has over 1,000 comments now, and my DMs are flooded with people telling me their stories of how they were also negatively affected by the video that he made about me. I was never alone. The conversation about trans people is changing. Kalvin Garrah represents an outdated and hurtful ideology that polices trans identities in order to make cis people more comfortable. Trans activism is moving away from that, and I want to be a part of that move. He targeted me to fuel his argument that trans people have to fit a certain set of rules, have to follow a specific narrative in order to be accepted by society. That is not true. Don't believe it. We don't have to follow a certain set of rules to be trans, because there is no set of rules to be trans. All I or anyone has to do to be trans enough is to identify as a gender that they were not assigned at birth. When I made that video in 2018, I identified as genderqueer, which is not an identity that I was assigned at birth. So I was trans enough then, and I am trans enough now. I have always been trans enough, and I never had to defend my identity. I never had to justify my identity to anyone, especially not Kalvin Garrah. And it has taken me this long to say that out loud, publicly, to the world, for anybody to see it. I had to go through all of that unnecessary pain and trauma and hurt and bullying in order to end up here. Hopefully I went through that so that other non-binary, trans, genderqueer people don't. All right, let's wrap this up. I put my flannel back on because it's nighttime now. And also, just so y'all know, my pants match the flannel. I can't make this video justly without mentioning that Kalvin Garrah did eventually delete or remove his video that he made about me, which has caused some people to believe that he's changing. The conversation we're having in trans activism does not reflect his ideology anymore. So it makes sense that he would try to change his ideology or learn something or grow, or at the very least he's trying to change his image to be more accepting and be more open-minded. He's known for being controversial. It's not just hating on me personally that he has to answer for. He has called people the R word and defended it. He's friends with Blair White. He bullied countless trans people like myself. He's literally admitted publicly to having a god complex. Deleting the video he made about me is just too little too late. And even if he has apologized and repented for the damage that he has caused, the damage is already done. Sometimes you cannot be forgiven. Besides, he still has a video calling me personally a transgender on his channel. But of course, some people have commented on my TikTok telling me that I need to give him the benefit of the doubt because maybe he did take it down in good faith and he did change his mind. And they're right. I do need to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't know what he was thinking when he deleted the video, except I do, because he deleted the video on Riley Grace Rochong's live stream. So let's see, did he show remorse for the video that he made and the hate that he sent my way? Did he understand the hurt that he inflicted on me? Did he change his mean and invalidating thoughts about me? Well, let's see.
They made a video talking about how you made a video about a smaller, way smaller trans YouTuber called Brennan.
That's what I'm talking about. That video that I'm probably gonna take down.
Yeah. Like,
because I was really young there, and I do disagree with a lot of what was said. I don't remember how many views it had at the time, but it had like it was the video that had. Brennan didn't have that many subscribers, but the video had a lot of views. It's very what's the word? It's really insulting. It's really insulting. Brennan did say some just crazy shit, and they just completely misconstrued what dysphoria is. Like, it was very clearly not dysphoria. What bothered me is that Brennan is this very obviously like female presenting person who made a video talking about what gender dysphoria is like, and the video had a lot of views at the time, which is why I reacted to it. And it was just so misinformed. The only thing is though that I don't disagree with some of the criticisms I made, and I don't want it to look like I don't disagree, because I really don't like I will say this to this day, I really don't like people like that speaking up over trans masculine people that are actually transitioned when they have no plan to transition or do any of that.
I don't have time to unpack all of that, but it's pretty clear to see that he has not changed his mind about me. He deleted his video about me, not because it hurt me, but because it hurt his image. Also, I can't let this go. I didn't write it in the script, but I can't let it go. He said that I was speaking over him when I was speaking on my own channel. I was speaking on my own channel completely for myself. And 3 years later, he still thinks I was speaking over him when he deplatformed me. Thank you so much for listening to my story, and I'm so glad that I could finally tell it. But that is far from the whole story. Kalvin Garrah represents an ideology that is harmful to the trans community as a whole. So in my next video, part 2 of this series, I'm going to broaden the subject. I want to talk about trans medicalism, gatekeeping in the queer community, and how it negatively affects trans people. And then in part 3, I'll tie up some loose ends and put everything that happened to me behind me for good. I think that this conversation needs to be had, but once I've said everything that I need to say, I'm gonna be done with it. It is not the most important conversation that we need to be having in the trans community. There are bigger, more pressing issues in the trans and the queer community than infighting and the conflict I have between Kalvin and I. And I want to talk about those things. I want to talk to other trans people about their experiences. I want to talk to other queer people about what they think are the most important conversations. So I'm really using this series as a jumping off point to talk about more bigger issues. I need to make this video series in order to move forward with my content. It is really annoying, and I want y'all to know that I know how stupid it is that I can't move forward with my content and I can't effectively talk about my identity online again without addressing this silly, annoying trans boy who thought that he knew me better than I knew myself. But regardless of how I'm coming back, I'm coming back. I'm going to continue the positive, uplifting queer work that I was doing 3 years ago. I have big plans to dive into big conversations, arguably way bigger and more important conversations than this one. I really did film a whole outro and then delete it, so we're gonna do it here now. It's fine, because this shirt is made by my friend Fidget, amazing non-binary trans artist. I will leave their shop in the link below. It took me 3 years to come back to this channel in a meaningful way, and I'm back now, but I could really use your support to stay for good. I know that Kalvin Garrah's army is big, but I think that I represent something bigger. I represent the queer community that is positive and productive, the community that is welcoming of all forms of transness. If you believe in that message, please subscribe to my channel. I will never beg for subscribers as much as I am in this video, because my numbers need to reflect our power if I'm going to stand a chance. It would also be really nice if you left some encouragement in the comments for me and anybody that might be seeking that kind of encouragement and support. I want you to know that my comments are being monitored so I can maintain a positive and productive environment. And of course, help me boost this video with a like. Thank you for letting me come back.